Hi there, this is Paul from Paul James Counselling, and today I just want to talk about what a couple can do when there's been an affair or a boundary cross, and the person that's had the affair is quite clear that they do not want to end the relationship. They want to make a go of it. They've ended the affair, or it's already ended. You know, what do we do? How do we move past that? That's what I want to talk about today. So let's talk about, what is a boundary cross within a relationship? Let's look at that. So for me, there's different types. So there's an emotional affair where someone might not even live in the same country as the person that they're speaking to. However, they've started to rely on this person to get their emotional needs met. They're talking very in depth around things that they should be turning to their partner for, or it's become very flirtatious or could be quite sexual. Maybe there's been some images sent, or some sexual wording, and just some things of a romantic nature. Now, they might not have had any intention of meeting that person. However, that's what we call an emotional boundary cross, an emotional affair. And then there's the physical side of things, where someone might not have even known the person's name. It might have just been a one-night stand. They might have maybe paid for sex, and it meant nothing other than the act of sex. That's a physical boundary cross within a relationship. And for some people, they might do both, where there was a physical boundary cross and also an emotional boundary cross. In my experience of working with people, the emotional boundary cross is the easiest one to deny to ourselves that anything's happened, because our partner might be really angry with us and feel really hurt, and the denial can come in and tell us, well, we didn't meet, we weren't sexual, we haven't even kissed, we didn't hold hands, so I don't think anything's happened. And sometimes this can be quite a hard stumbling block to sort of to work through, because the person that's done the boundary cross can't see that it is a boundary cross, and they can't so the person that's had the affair done to them, they can't feel the validation that's needed, and the ownership from their partner that's needed. So sometimes people can work through the emotional boundary cross slightly easier. Some people can work through a physical boundary cross slightly easier. It depends which way we're inclined, but either way, both behaviors are hurtful and damaging, and they can be quite traumatic as well. When we find out that our partner has had an affair, it can be traumatic, and what I mean by that is pain and hurt beyond what we're able to cope with. Therefore, it turns into trauma. And sometimes people that have had the affair done to them can have some PTSD. Because what I notice working with people is we can be doing the work. That's why I always say to a couple that come to see me, the recovery from this is going to be this. Okay? So there's going to be downs. So as long we're going to be trying to head in the right direction, but expect some of these. And what I mean by that is if someone has found it traumatic, it's trauma, they can have a bit of PTSD around it, where they could see someone with similar hair around the streets or in a coffee shop, and their body will react in exactly the same way as when they first found out about the affair. And that's like an emotional flashback. So their body and their trauma and the way they react, it goes exactly back to when they first found out about the affair. You know, it's traumatic. So sometimes it can feel like we're not getting anywhere because we keep going into these dips, but the person's actually having a trauma response. So it's quite important to identify that and to notice if that resonates with you, if you feel like you're having an emotional flashback when you see coffee shops, or if you see a hotel, or if you see someone's hair and hair color, and you go right back there, that could be a trauma response. If it is, you know, there's help for trauma. There's EMDR therapy. There's somatical experiencing. You might want to you might need some of your own personal therapy around that. But that's something that we can identify with, you know, in session when I work with couples. So yeah, look out for that. You know, it's traumatic. You know, when you find out that your partner has had an affair, it is absolutely traumatic, especially if you didn't notice anything was wrong. If it's the last thing on your mind that you could have expected happening has happened, you know, it can feel very traumatic, and that can give you PTSD. So that's something to think about. And part of the recovery process from this, so say two people, there's been an affair and two people are saying, right, I don't want to leave this person, but I don't know how to trust anymore. I don't know, a switch has gone off and I can't trust this person anymore. You know, what do we do? And the person that's had the affair goes into what I call damage limitation, where they think, right, I need to give out as little information as possible. I need to bring this subject up as little as possible, and just avoid it and hope that my partner doesn't bring it up. And all I want to do is move on. All I want to do is look over there, away from the affair, and I just want to move on. I just know I'm never going to do it again, a person can say to themselves. However, their partner doesn't know that. So it can be quite a frustrating mix for a while. So they go in damage limitation, give out as little information as possible in the hope that we will just get through this. And it feels the complete wrong thing to do to engage in conversation with our partner around the subject. However, the paradox of this situation is the more you're able to hold the space of our partners wanting to bring the subject up, the quicker we will get healing from this. So the worst thing that you can do is shut your partner down, is to say, I don't want to talk about it, is to get stressed, is to feel quite angry. Now, don't get me wrong, you're going to hate talking about this subject. It's going to be the worst thing. You're going to want the ground to swallow you up, you know. But what I would encourage you to do is to be open. If you're the person that's had the affair, to be open to talk about it. Now, I don't necessarily mean talking about the actual details of the affair. That probably won't be very helpful. However, what I would encourage you to do is to talk about how you felt about yourself and how you felt within the relationship. What were the things that you was not communicating? What wants and needs did you feel like wasn't getting met? Now, what I always do in this situation, what's really important, is the person that's had the affair done to them, is I continually remind you that we're not justifying anything here, okay? It's never okay to have an affair, okay? So I just want to let you know that we're not justifying that there's a good reason ever to have an affair. However, an affair has been done, and you're possibly deciding to stay together. So what's going to be really helpful is to look at what was going on with the partner who had the affair at the time, so we can gain some understanding around it, so we can then possibly start to move on. Because the worst thing that can happen for someone in your position who's had the affair done to them is to hear, I don't know why I did it, I just know I won't do it again. Because then for yourself, you're thinking, well, if you don't know why you did it, that means you can then do it again. So it's impossible to move on. So what I would encourage someone to do in your position who's had the affair done to them, I'm going to say this side is the affair done to them, this side is the person who's had the affair. So for yourself is to, you're going to want to ask questions, you're going to want to gather information, you're going to want to know the ins and outs. What I would invite you to not do is ask too many details of actually what happened between the two people, but to feel free to ask questions around, why did you do it? What was your thinking about? Did you think, were you thinking of ending the relationship with me? Someone in your position is desperate to try and make sense of something that's very horrendous and possibly traumatic. So someone in your position, what I would encourage you to do is to learn how to be okay talking about the subject. Okay? Even at times, and this will feel paradoxical, even at times, bringing the subject up yourself. How are you doing today? How are you feeling around, the affair? Is there anything you would like to talk about today? Yeah? And what's important, if we can, once the anger's died down, someone in your position who's had the affair done to them, that you try your hardest. Now, this isn't going to be easy, and you won't be able to do this at times because you're going to be very angry, especially at first, but try to watch how angry you're portraying yourself at the time. Now, I know you're angry and you're going to feel angry and you've got every right to feel angry. But when you're trying to make an approach to your partner to gather some information, try to watch, if you can, for being angry at them. If you can, try to come with curiosity. Why did that happen? What were you thinking then? Were you thinking of me? What was your plans at the time? Now, this is a very, against the grain kind of thing for someone in your position. But even if, you say to your partner, at the time I was feeling very mixed up and I wasn't even sure if I wanted to be with you. That would be hard to hear, but it would make sense to the person, okay? And they would say, okay, well, if you weren't planning on being with me anymore, or you had some thoughts of not being with me, that kind of makes a bit more sense than I just felt fine within the relationship, I don't know why I did it. Does that make sense? It's going to be hard to hear that, but it would make some sense. And the more sense we can make out of this traumatic situation, the easier it's going to be to move into healing. The less information that someone in your position can gather and your position is willing to give, the harder it's going to be to move forward. So I really invite yourself to reflect on how you felt within the relationship. Be as honest as you can, because if we're at this point, we're kind of at the point where there's not much to lose here, right? We're on the edge. If there's been an affair and, be open to giving information and try to be truthful. How did you really feel within the relationship at the time? How did you justify having a relationship? For some people, their wants and needs aren't getting met. They feel neglected in the relationship. Maybe a kids come along. They're not able to communicate to their partner that they're feeling really left out, they're feeling left at the wayside. Therefore, rather than communicating it, they get some attention from someone else, and they run with that. Now, we're not justifying it, but that's what can happen sometimes. If only we could have just communicated with enough authority that our partner heard, I'm feeling this. So another thing we can do in moving forward is if we can arm people with the tools of communication, then if someone's feeling whatever they're feeling within the relationship, they're able to communicate it to their partner and include them and not feel the need to justify having an affair. Because sometimes people can be in such denial and can justify it by, I don't even think my partner would mind. We haven't slept together for 2 years. We don't sleep in the same bed. My partner seems more interested in our child than me. Our justification for that can be, I don't even think they'd mind. In fact, that's probably what they want, is for us to split up, our assumptions can say. So communication is vital. And what that can then do, if we can start the communication around that, and we can gather enough information around the affair, enough for yourself to make some form of sense out of it. Yeah? Enough to think, okay, painful, but I kind of get it a bit. Enough to move on. Yeah? And then we might be able to sort of heal and sort of move forward from this slowly. And don't forget, it's going to be like that, because you're going to get triggered. You're going to get triggered sometimes. And what I say to someone in your position is, allow your partner to be triggered sometimes. Allow them to fall apart sometimes. Yeah? Allow them to be angry at you sometimes. If you can hold that anger and you can just empathize back without retaliating, you'll be able to heal and move forward from this a lot quicker, because the person that's had the affair done to them will then feel heard, validated. If the person in your position gets defensive and can't talk about it, then the other person will think that they're not owning what's happened. Yeah, the other person will feel that their feelings aren't being clarified, they're not being heard, and we end up stuck. So I just encourage you to think about that. Gather as much information as you can. Be open to give as much information as you can around how you felt in yourself, around your relationship, what you might do differently in asking for your wants and needs moving forward. And then we can start to move forward from this. Now, sometimes when this happens and we can put all this into play, there's always going to be the you two before and you two after. It's never going to be, the same, right? It's going to be you guys before and you after. However, if we work on this, if we look at this and we're able to communicate and you're open to the things that I've kind of suggested in this meeting, there's no reason why we can't work through this and make our relationship better. However, if you're watching this video and you've just found out you're going to be in the anger stage, you're going to be in the trauma stage, you're going to be in a very desperate state. But if you can just think about some of the suggestions in this video, I think it will help for moving forward. So I wish you well. It's a horrible situation to be in, but there are ways out of this to continue to build trust and to rebuild the relationship and try to make it even better than it was before. Thank you for listening, and I wish you well.